Hello and welcome to Gardening with Ben. Thanks for joining us on our third podcast. The other two have gone down well, so I'm going to be producing these on a regular basis. The sound quality will be a lot better than the previous two episodes. I've now found some headphones what I can use to record on, so fingers crossed the sound quality does sound a lot better. I've also ordered myself a microphone as well, so it should get even better. So today's episode is going to be about what my successes have been this year on the allotment and what I'm doing now down on the plot. So stay tuned, settle down, get yourself a coffee and enjoy this episode. So obviously now the month is November, and the question is, why would you start a podcast in November when there's not much to be doing in the garden? But there's so much that you can be doing in preparing the garden and the allotment ready for next year. At the moment on my allotment, I've literally hardly got anything growing on my plot at the moment. If you follow me on Facebook and Instagram, you'll see the photos of what it's looking like right now. That's Gardening with Ben on Facebook and Instagram. So my plot is pretty much bare at the moment. Over the last week, I've been concentrating on removing all the old vegetable plants, any weeds what are growing. I have a massive issue on my plot with bindweed. If you don't know what bindweed is, it's like a vine sort of weed, and the roots tend to go for miles. Apparently, bindweed can grow about 6 centimeters a day, so it can be quite intrusive on the plot. It's easy to dig up, but it's so hard to get rid of. The bindweed roots, if you're digging them up, if you just break one into the smallest piece, that bit of root will grow back and it will continue growing. So you need to get as much of the bindweed root out as possible. And I've been tackling it now possibly for about 3 or 4 years on my plot. This year was probably the best year for getting rid of the bindweed, as I've currently just had a new neighbour on my plot, next door to my plot, and he's had his plot for the last half a year, and he's been digging up a lot of his bindweed, what he's got on his plot, as it travelled across from below his plot, up his plot, onto my plot. So he's been digging out a lot of it as well. So fingers crossed, hopefully we will get on top of that. So at the moment, like I said, I'm currently clearing all my plot and getting rid of all the old vegetation what's down there, any plants what have died off, and digging out all the old vegetables. If you haven't heard already, the place where I'm recording these podcasts is an app called Anchor, and it's totally free. They also put your podcasts on multiple platforms like Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts. Straight away, you can also schedule the time that you want it to go on, which is fantastic. There's also creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer, so you can record your podcast literally anywhere you want. You can also make money from your podcasts as well, with no minimum listenership whatsoever. So the more times it gets played, the more times you can earn money from it. And there's everything you need to make your podcast all in one place. So if you download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm, you can get started with your free podcasts. Around autumn and November time, it's absolutely perfect timing to get those plots cleared. That's why I mentioned in my previous episode, if you are deciding to take on an allotment, now is the perfect time, as nothing will be growing now. It's now the time to be clearing all the plots, getting it tidied, and if possible, get the ground covered over. Once you've dug it over, use like a black membrane to keep the weeds down and stop any seeds from landing in the soil, creating more weeds. And it's the perfect time to plan the plot ready for next year, as usually you're planting out in May time. So you've got between November and May to get your plot looking how it should look, ready for the year ahead. As if you leave it till the last minute, you'll be concentrating on growing all your seeds and you won't have time to concentrate on getting your plot into shape. During these winter months, I tend to use this time of the year to make improvements to my plot, as I've got a good layout on my plot, but every year I want to make it that little bit better. An allotment can just be a ground for growing stuff on, but I like it to look nice as well. So I try to improve it so that it does look a nice garden, somewhere that I can relax in and enjoy it. So previously, last year, I spent it building a new part of my shed. That was my project last year. This year's project, I've created a brand new area. I've used it before. I've got 3 beds in it, but I've redone all the beds. I've redesigned the paths and I've got some paving slabs put down on them so that it doesn't get too muddy. And I don't know if you're like me, but I've got a wood pile down on my plot. And if you ever see any wood going spare, you will take it to the allotment. Trust me, if you've got an allotment, you will have a wood pile where you just store lots and lots of wood. So I've made a picket fence out of some of the wood from the old pallets and some of the old wood that I've got on my plot. I'm praising myself here. I've got to admit, it does look absolutely brilliant. And my followers have also commented saying how good it looks. I've just got to give it a lick of paint, but I'm waiting until it dries up before I can do that. One thing else that I've done in this new area, I must have planted between 500 and 600 spring bulbs. It was the first time that I grew them this year on my plot, and it looked absolutely fantastic. The colour what were out in spring at the front of my plot looked absolutely fantastic. I will do another topic on this spring bulbs on what needs to be planted now, so make sure you subscribe and stay up to date with that. So I must have planted absolutely loads. I've planted tulips, daffodils, hyacinths and snowdrops in this new area. So it's going to look fantastic come springtime. I'm just hoping that the squirrel doesn't come along and pinch all the bulbs, as I do see quite a few squirrels down on the plot. But fingers crossed, it will look lovely. So that area is being completed and it looks great. If you check it out on Instagram, you'll see what it looks like at the moment. And the bit that I'm doing now is on my main part of the plot. This is where I grow all my food, all my vegetables. And I've had this design for about 3 or 4 years now of how it's looking. But like I say, I like to improve stuff every year and make it look better. So at the moment, I'm concentrating. I've cleared all my beds where all the vegetables were. My main part of the plot, what I'm looking at now, is the boundary between my plot and my neighbour's plot. As the picket fencing looks so good, I want to continue it down the sides of my plot even further. As down the sides of my new main plot area, I like to grow flowers. This was the first year that I grew flowers on my plot, and I grew sunflowers, geraniums, I grew calendula and scabia, and they looked absolutely beautiful throughout the summer. So my plan is to have even more flowers on my plot this year. We can only have, I think it's 25% flowers on the plot, but if I can squeeze them in where I can, I will do, and that will make it look great. And the sunflowers which grew on my plot this year, the heads on them were absolutely massive. The bees absolutely loved them so much. So I'm hoping to get as many sunflowers growing on my plot as I can this year, well, next year. That is one of my challenges, to see how many sunflowers I can get growing on my plot. I was digging one up today and the amount of soil what will clung to the root, you don't believe how much soil and roots that it gets on a sunflower. It was quite amazing, to be honest. But we've got all them up today. So tomorrow I'll be starting to build the picket fence on my plot and make that look great. So make sure you stay up to date with that and see how it's looking. So I want to get that picket fence done, the flower beds done down the sides of my plot, and then after that I've got 3 strawberry beds. And if you don't grow strawberries, you need to grow strawberries on your bed plot. I must have bought about 24 strawberry plants to start off with, and now I must have over 200 plants on my plot. And each year I get the runners off them and pot them up and plant them as well in the ground. And any old plants, I dig them up and replace them with the new plants. So now is the time to be sorting out your strawberry plants and making them tidy and look good. Cut back off any old dead leaves, any diseased leaves, trim off any runners, pot them up and plant them. You can plant them now, or you can wait until the plant's grown a bit more and plant them out in March time. So I've started some off in pots and I've also planted some in the ground. But I've seen so many pictures where they plant them in like milk cartons down the sides of the plot, which do look fantastic, and it's one thing that I think about doing, but it's keeping them watered. Obviously, if you fasten them in pots, you've got to keep them watered, whereas if they're in the ground, they'll get more water. So that's one idea. So another job that I've got on my plot at the moment, now is the time to be trimming back any autumn raspberries. Autumn raspberries, you can chop them right to the ground, as they will send out new canes the next year and produce raspberries on that cane what's grown. Whereas summer raspberries, you only cut back the canes that have had fruit on this year. The new canes which have grown this year, they will produce the fruit next year. And choosing between summer and autumn raspberries, I've got to say the autumn raspberries are a lot better than the summer raspberries. They seem to have had more fruit on them. The fruit were bigger and a lot more tastier, and obviously they're easy to prune because you just prune back all the raspberry canes and the new ones will grow the next year. So I've got them growing on my plot down the side of my plot, but the only issue is that the roots from the raspberries send out more canes and they seem to pop up everywhere. If you're thinking about growing raspberries, be careful because they're probably worse than weeds. They just grow everywhere and anywhere. But now is the time you can dig up where they've grown and they shouldn't grow, and you can move them to the areas where you need them. And autumn raspberries will need supports as well as summer raspberries, so that you can fasten the canes to once they grow and keep them supported. So it's ideal to have them near a fence or something, or some fruit wires what you can fasten them to stop them from bending over. So that's my next job after I've built my picket fence, to move all my raspberry canes into the right place. Another project what's half started on my plot, if you are following me, you'll have seen the pictures of it so far. At the top of my plot is an area that I've never touched in the 16 years that I've had my plot. When you're starting an allotment, it's good to start at the front and work your way back bit by bit each year. And this has been an area of that I've not really used, and it's just been a case of dumping area. If you've got some old rubbish, you just dump it in there. Any old wood, you just dump it. I'm sure everybody's got an area where you can just throw stuff and just leave it. But my aim was to get to the top of my plot this year, and I've cleared so much of that area. And funny thing is, while I've been digging in it, like I said, I've not touched it in the 16 years. I've been finding old bottles from years and years and years ago. Like, this is going back to probably around after the war, when the people had the plots during the wartime. So I've been finding old bottles down there, and I've found so much glass. They must have had a greenhouse down there. And another bit is that they must have had a brick building at the top of my plot, because every time I put the spade into the ground, I hit another brick. I how many more bricks can be found at the top of my plot. I've found so many that I've been able to edge this new area with all the bricks that I've found, and I'm still finding more bricks now. And I've finished part of it, but then also I'm thinking about having a herb area on the top of my plot, as I've got a few herb plants. I've got a lemon balm plant on my plot, which is lovely in hot water. It's so soothing and relaxing. It helps you sleep, apparently. So I've got a lemon balm plant at the moment, but I'd love a lot more herb plants on my plot and to experiment in growing different ones. So I'm planning on having a massive area at the top of my plot with all different herb plants, but I'm not going to plant them straight into the ground. I'm going to plant them into containers and sink them into the ground so that they don't spread and take over, as herbs can be very intrusive and they can spread easily, and once it starts spreading it might be hard to stop them. So that's the plan for the top of my plot. And I've also not actually got a seating area on my plot, and I just want a bench to sit back on and relax and look at the plot and see how well I'm doing. One thing I don't find time to is actually sit down on the plot. There's always so much work to be doing down there that you just can't find time to sit back and enjoy it. So I want to have a little seated area where I can just sit back and relax and make notes of what I've been doing, and maybe notes on new podcasts and new videos to share on my YouTube channel. So I'd like a nice little seated area. So I've got quite a lot of projects to get done between November and March, from when I'm going to be planting my seeds. And another job which I do need to do is sort out in my shed, as I've had the shed built for 5 years. I built it all from scratch, but like I say, I like to improve stuff each year, and sometimes think, oh, I need a few more shelves up. I did actually put some shelves up last year and they all collapsed with all my plants on. I did manage to catch it on camera when I was filming a video, and you just heard this crash bang wallop. It weren't funny at the time, obviously, but it was funny to share the video later of my face when I just saw everything collapse in the shed. But yeah, that was quite funny. So I've got a lot of jobs to get done, but hopefully, fingers crossed, I will get them all done. So tomorrow's topic will possibly be about spring bulbs. So make sure you click that subscribe button, and we'll talk about spring bulbs, about what spring bulbs you can plant now, what the benefits are of planting spring bulbs, and why we should be planting spring bulbs. If you've got an allotment, you definitely need to have spring bulbs on your plot. So we'll be talking about the importance of having them down there on your allotment tomorrow. So make sure you click that subscribe button. Feel free to share it, and we'll see you tomorrow. So thank you for listening to my third episode on my Gardening with Ben podcast. I hope you've enjoyed it. Feel free to follow me on Facebook, Instagram and YouTube. They are all Gardening with Ben, and to stay up to date with how I'm doing. It's always good to hear from you and see comments as well. So thanks for listening, and I hope you have a great day, everyone. Remember, keep gardening.